Hello everyone. So this is our day 11 and we'll be studying John chapter 6 today. So we have so far completed 5 chapters and we had great learning. So I believe this one also will be a great learning and we all will enjoy it looking into the true nature of God, true heart of God. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. Okay, so today we are studying John chapter 6. As you can read the heading, it says feeding the 5,000. So here we get a gist of what Jesus actually did. He fed more than 5,000 people. Now, uh, let's not just look at it as just a miracle, just a sign, but the actual learning. What is the learning behind this? So we are going to see that. So we'll start. Chapter 6, verse 1. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him because they saw his signs which he performed on those who were diseased. And Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat with the disciples. So we get a context here that Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, and then a great multitude followed him. There was a great crowd that followed him. Because why they followed, that reason is also given, because they saw his signs which he performed on those who were diseased or those who were sick people. So they saw Jesus healing the sick. That was a sign for them that he's someone from God. No one can do this sign unless God is with him, as per Nicodemus. So we get to see that this because of this sign, they were following Jesus. Now in third verse, Jesus went up on a mountain and there sat with the disciples. And fourth verse, now the Passover, a feast of the Jews was near. So let's decide the context here. What is the context? Jesus has come from over a lake, Sea of Galilee, and he comes to a place, and there a great crowd is following him. Crowd is about, as we read in the heading. It's sorry. Mm, Yes. So, as we read in the heading, the crowd is more than 5,000 people. Because in Jewish tradition, whenever they count the crowd, they count the men, only men. Now, if it says 5,000 men, obviously women and children are always more in number. So, I believe it's more than 10,000 people who were there. So, Jesus having a following of 10,000 people, and they are following him just because they saw his signs, they saw his miracles. And Jesus went up on the mountain and sat with the disciples. Now, what happens? The Passover, a feast of the Jews was near. What is Passover? I think we have already discussed that, but I'll just give a hint that Passover is a feast that is celebrated in remembrance of what God did in Egypt. When Israel was enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, God delivered them through his servant Moses. So that was the 10th, there were 10 plagues that came on Egypt in order to show that, these are people of God and you should let them go. But their king Pharaoh, he was not letting them go. But this was the 10th and final plague when Pharaoh let them go. So what was that plague? That plague was that on the night there will be an angel of death who will be walking around all over Egypt, and he will enter into every house and kill the firstborn of the house. Whoever is born first in that house, be it man, woman, or even animal. If that animal is firstborn, that animal will die. So that was the 10th plague, and God had commanded to Israel that what you should be do. You are different people. This plague is coming up for all people, but you are different people. So I give you a workaround, a solution that you take a lamb, sacrifice it, and apply its blood on the doorpost of your house, so that when that angel will see the blood, that angel will pass over. That's why it's called Passover. So angel will pass over from that house and it will not enter there. so that that house will be spared, no one will die there. So that is the, again, shadow. So we'll be doing the shadow and truth, shadow and reality here also. So get ready for that. So that was the shadow, that lamb was the shadow, but the real lamb is Jesus, whose blood saves us from death, from separation from God, who brought us near by the blood of Jesus. So we, now why I'm telling this is a part of context, because these people are in the they're away from the city, where they cannot go anywhere to buy food. They can't do, this. Even the farming is not possible. Now, why I'm telling this is because this situation has happened in Old Testament also. So we'll be connecting those things and we'll learn from it. So first thing is, they are in wilderness. You can call it wilderness because they are away from the city. They cannot go in city and have food. They are in wilderness. And second thing, the Passover is at hand. So there are two parallels here. First is regarding this bread. Second is regarding Passover. So in this video, we'll be covering the bread wala part, so that, and when we'll meet, we'll discuss about, I think we should be able to discuss about Passover because it's very big. I'm not sure. No, I think we'll have to see the next one next week. But I'll just give you a heads up that there are two parallels here. First is Passover, first is bread, second is Passover. So we'll cover the bread part here. So what happens now? I gave you the context that they are in wilderness. They can't buy bread. They can't have bread because they're so much in number. There's no way that they can have so much bread delivered there, or bring it there. Why? Because not because I'm saying, but it's written there. So let's go there. Fifth verse. When Jesus lifted up his eyes and seeing great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Now Jesus speaks to two of his disciples, not just one disciple. There are two disciples who give answer. So Philip is the first disciple. Jesus tests him. Why test? Just to know his heart, what his heart says about this situation. That situation is that they are away from city and they have literally 10,000 people who are hungry. They are just following Jesus. If they go back, they will faint on the way. They cannot go back. So they must eat now. So that is the situation. And then Philip says, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" He's saying that where shall we buy? There's no place to buy. City is so far. We can't go there and buy. And these many people are so, that 10,000 people, we can't have food of 10,000 people getting from city. It's not possible. It's very far because they're literally in wilderness. So Jesus asked, "Where shall we buy bread that we may that these may eat?" But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. So seventh verse, Philip, first disciple, answers. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little. So Philip is saying, he's using his calculative mind. He's saying, if we buy bread worth of 200 denarii, which is a lot of money, even if you buy that much, sorry for that. Even if we buy that much, it will not be sufficient for these many people. They won't be able to have even little part. Means even if we buy, it will not be sufficient. So second disciple speaks. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here. There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?" Now Andrew comes little lower. He's saying, "Leave about 200 denarii. We have only 5 bread and 2 fish. How can we do this? It's not sufficient for these people." So what, this boy, we don't know about him, who is he, where he came from, but he had this many bread which he was willing to give to Jesus. So here we get, here one learning is, Whenever we are in a situation where we are not in control, we can't do anything about it, but we have very little, and our heart knows that this is not sufficient anyways. So what we should do, we should surrender everything to Jesus and let him do the thing. Let him do what what best seems to him, because the problem is not about supply. Problem is about our heart. Jesus was testing the heart of Philip, what he would say. Whether he would say, Lord, you can do anything, you do it. But Philip is in his calculative mind, he's saying, okay, 200 denarii, okay, it's not sufficient. No, no, not possible. Andrew, he's also saying, okay, this is the present situation, this is the reality, this is a fact. Now, what can we do about it? But where Jesus operates is a different level. You can see that what Jesus says. Jesus says, make the people sit down. Now there was so much grass in that place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those sitting down, likewise the fish, as much as they wanted. So when they were filled, he said to his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is lost. So we'll read this much now. So it says that Jesus tells them, make the people sit down. So why he's saying that? No, he knows what he's going to do. He's saying, make the people sit down. There was so much grass in that place, so they sat down. Now what Jesus did? Jesus took the loaves, 5 loaves, 2 fish. He gave thanks. The first thing he did is whatever little he had, he gave thanks. So we should always be thankful with what little we have instead of focusing on what we don't have. Because when we give thanks, we open door for God to multiply what we have. Because we know it's not about the provision, it's about the heart, where a heart is. That's what Jesus wants to know. That's why he asked question to Philip, where can we buy this? Jesus wanted to see whether Philip believes in me to that extent that I can take care of them and we don't need to buy it. So that's what God is concerned about, our heart, not about what we do, but why we do, why we sin, why we do mistake. God is more interested in why, not on what. Okay, so let's get into it. Now let's see. In Jesus took the loaves and he gave thanks, he distributed them, and the disciples, he distributed them to disciples, disciple gave to people. And they were eating and they were filled. It says 12th verse. So when they were filled, they said to a disciple, gather up fragments that remain so that nothing is lost. Yes. So we get to know that they Jesus will just want to make sure that nothing is lost and they are fed. They are fed. So we'll see what is the actual 1 minute. Okay, sorry for that. There was a lot of disturbance. Okay, so we'll continue. Now there was so much grass in that place, and Jesus made them sit down. And Jesus is saying that make people sit down, and then he gives bread to disciples and disciples to the people. Now this is a picture. We'll see what is the relevance of this in in Old Testament. We get to see that Jesus is telling them that in New Testament, Jesus is telling them to sit down and he gives them bread. Now let's go into Old Testament. We see that as we read in John chapter 3, I think we were in day 6 probably. So that's where we saw that the Israelites, when they complain against the manna, they complain against the bread that comes from heaven for them. They complained against it, and then they had to face the snakes and all those things. But why? I mean, we also we also saw that that bread was a representation of Jesus, that he's the bread of life. That bread is just for the survival, but the real bread gives life. Real bread gives eternal life. So Jesus is just explaining here why he has come. But we'll see that when he is doing these things with Jewish people, they know that they are away from city, they are in wilderness, and they have heard from childhood the story of manna, that in Old Testament God gave them manna when Israelites, they were in wilderness. They couldn't work, they couldn't do farming, they couldn't do hunting. There was nothing. They were in wilderness. Wilderness means literally the place of desert. So they were there. So it's a deserted place. They can't go anywhere to buy food. They had to depend on God. God only had to feed them and take care of them. So that's the thing. Here we see the same scenario, that they are away from city. They are also in kind of wilderness where they cannot buy food, where they cannot do any work and get food for themselves. They have to depend on Jesus. So in Old Testament, we see that Jesus, sorry, Moses tells them that, let's see what Moses says. We'll go to Exodus chapter 16. Okay, Exodus chapter 16. Let me change it to English. Okay, so Exodus chapter 16. I'll just give you a brief, in short, we'll just see. Now the children of Israel said to them, that means Moses and Aaron, who were leading these people out of Egypt. Now they have been delivered from Pharaoh. They came out of Egypt, but now they're in wilderness. What happens? Now they said to, now the children of Israel said to them, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Now these people, they are saying that there we used to sit next to the pot of meat. There we used to eat full bread. Now you have brought us in this wilderness. Why? Kill us with hunger. So they are getting angry, but God is not getting angry because God knows their need. God knows they need food. So God understood that okay, they are getting angry. God can understand. So what God says, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them. Again, testing. Jesus tested Philip. Here, Lord is testing them, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall be on the sixth day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather it daily. So God told them that on the just a minute. Okay, yeah. So what they did was, on that day, God told them that I will rain bread from heaven. You will get a bread, and on the day before Sabbath, sixth day, you shall gather twice. What was God's rule? Because He's saying, Moses tells them, if you go back there, just a minute. Okay, so what Moses tells them is, and Moses and Aaron said to the children of Israel, at evening you shall know that Lord has brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your complaints against the Lord. But what are we that you complain against us? This shall be seen when the Lord gives you. Okay, it's about meat. I think it's little further. Hmm. Yeah. So we'll see 13th verse, Exodus 16 verse 13. Uh, oh, sorry, not 6, not 13, 14. And when the layer of the dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, this is the bread which Lord has given you to eat. This is the thing which the Lord has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need, each one omer for each person, according to a number of person. Let every man take who are in the tent. Then the children of Israel did so and gathered some more, some less, and measured it by omers. He who gathered much had nothing left over, and he who gathered little had no lack. Every man gathered according to his need. So what God's God's commandment here was that you should gather this bread as much as you need, because God is your provider. God wants to show here is, I am your provider. You are in wilderness, you can't go to, you can't do farming, you can't do any work, you can't earn bread. I am your provider. I'll provide for you. So God is providing the bread. Now what is their responsibility? They need to get up early morning. Every morning they need to get up and go there and gather it, and then they can make it, they can make it bread, make its bread, they can make cakes, they can make different things. It was not like God gave them only one dish, ate one dish for 40 years. Not, that was not the case. It's written there that they used that manna to create different things. So God gave them bread, but God gave them one commandment also, as we read there, that God did this to test them whether they will really follow Him or not. So God told them that on the sixth day you shall gather double. Why? Because on seventh day it's a Sabbath day. God will not uh, God will not want them to go out and gather it. It's a day of rest. So you gather double and use it for the seventh day. But God said on every day you should gather only as much as you need. If you gather more, it will rot. There will be worms in it and it will stink. And again, I'll reiterate this thing. God is not concerned about what we do, but why we do. So here we see that if we go back to Exodus 16, we'll see that 20th verse. As per in 19th verse, Moses said, let no one leave any of it till morning. That means whatever you have gathered, finish it. Don't leave it until morning. But what happens? Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moses. But some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Why Moses was angry? Now, to a human mind, it might sound logical that, okay, let's gather more so that tomorrow will not have to come here, right? So let's gather more. But in their heart, it's a doubt that is leading them to do this thing, is that let's gather today only. What if we don't get tomorrow? What if God don't provide tomorrow? So that thought was the problem. That uh, unbelief was the problem. That's why they gathered more. And that's why Moses was angry with them, that they did not believe in God as the provider. So it happened in initial days. Later on, they got used to it. Later on, they knew that, okay, we have to gather this much only. It comes every morning. That's fine. It's as equal to as sun rises every day. We know it. So why don't we trust God like that? That God provided today, He'll provide tomorrow also. He's the one who created the sun. So sun shows that He never fails. He never fails coming every day. So God is, He is the creator of these things. He wants to show His faithfulness to us, that He is faithful no matter what. So here we get to see that God disciplined them in believing, in trusting Him as for their bread, for their provision. So they trusted God later and they ate that manna for 40 years. Now coming back to Jesus, here also we'll see the parallels here that these are Israel was in wilderness. These people are also in wilderness. These people, Israel had to go down every morning to get the manna. Here, manna is coming to them. Here, the bread comes to him. Bread says, "Sit down. I will send the bread to you. I come to you. I came," as we read in John chapter 1. He came with grace and truth. He came himself. The bread himself came down. We'll see that in same chapter. Jesus says, "The bread of life, bread of heaven is He who comes down and gives life." He came to give life. So here bread is saying, you sit down, I'll come to you. So Jesus sent bread to these people when they were sitting. Here they had to go and gather it. Jesus sent the bread. Now here you see that these people also were told that don't uh, gather more than you need. Why? Not because it is bad, but because You are doing it because you don't believe God that He will provide tomorrow. That's why you're gathering much. Here, Jesus is saying in 12th verse, gather up the fragments that remain so nothing is lost. So here he also saying same thing, gather the fragments so that nothing is lost. He is doing this, I believe he is doing this simply for them to connect the dots with the Old Testament. That in Old Testament also God did not like if manna is wasted. So he is doing this thing deliberately so that these people will at least looking at this thing. The word is in their heart. They believed, they have been hearing Moses' story since beginning, manna story. So when they were in wilderness, Jesus expected them that he did a sign. Signs are, they lead you to the main thing. They lead you somewhere. Signs lead you somewhere. So Jesus did the sign so that they will lead to the conclusion that he is the Messiah. So what happens? Jesus is doing this thing deliberately. He is saying, gather the fragments so that nothing is lost. So when they gathered, it is like manna is getting gathered, not wasting. So here Jesus is also carrying the same heart as God's. That manna shouldn't be wasted. Bread shouldn't be wasted. I'm not talking about natural bread. Okay, I'm talking about word of God. It's saying that it shouldn't be wasted. Take as much as you need. And here also God said, manna also take as much as you need, because if you take more, that is you are doing that because you don't believe that God will provide tomorrow also. So here Jesus is also saying, I provided you, you're full. Now let's gather the remaining. So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the sign that Jesus did, said, this is truly the prophet who is to come into the world. Now they understood. As whatever Jesus wanted them to believe, they believed. But their believing was little misunderstood. Why? Because they, in their understanding, as we have seen in previous sessions also, that they used to believe that Messiah is a warrior king who will come and he'll fight the Romans and he will defeat them. That's how he will, uh, you know, give freedom to Israel. It will come again under God's rule. That's what they were believing. Because Jesus had come to do nothing of it. He had come to set us free from sin, from death, the separation from God. He had come to save us from that. So their understanding of Messiah was completely different. So what happens? Though they believe that he's the prophet, and why they believe is because of signs. But what happens in 15th verse? Therefore, when Jesus perceived that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountains by himself alone. Now, what Jesus did, why Jesus did it, is because Jesus knew their hearts that they will make him king by force, and then they will expect that he will lead this army of 10,000 people or 5,000 male, that they will go against the Romans and all. So that was their understanding. That Jesus didn't want this. For Jesus, this battle was much more than just giving freedom to a nation. It was giving, deliverance to entire world. So he's thinking on broader perspective. So he said, so he didn't want to become king. He said, I am a king already, and I have no pleasure in doing and getting honor from men. As we read in John chapter 5, last verses, that he said, I do not receive honor from men. You receive honor from men. I do not do that, because I receive the honor that comes from only God. He says, my honor is to do his will, and that's what gives me satisfaction. That's why he didn't want this. He didn't want to become king, so he departed from there. Now, I just hope I have touched uh, I just hope I have touched every aspect. Passover was near. Okay, yeah, that is the second parallel we have. First is a bread. So we saw the bread part. Okay, I think we did that. Great. Let's go into this till 21. Let's do this quickly. 16th verse. Now, when the evening came, now the context has changed. It is evening time. The bread thing is done. Everything is done. Now, Jesus is not there. He is still in the mountain. Now, when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and went over the sea towards Capernaum. And when it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them, then sea arose a great wind. Then the sea arose because of a great wind was blowing. Now what happened? Disciples went down, they got into a boat, and they were going to Capernaum. Jesus was not with them. So what happened? There was a storm. So they were rowing in the sea. They were just trying to get ahead. So when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near the boat, and they were afraid. So when they are in their hard work, they are doing all the best they can do. They have 4 fishermen with them, so they know how to do with the boat. They are experienced, but so they are doing all their best, but they don't know what to do. And in that, they see that Jesus is coming down walking on water, so they get freaked out. They are like they think it's a ghost. And but Jesus said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. Now, this same incident is given in other gospels also, where it's more elaborative, but John has not covered that aspect because I believe everyone else, this is the latest gospel, as we already know. So John has covered the points which are left by other gospels. But so we will not be going into deep into this part for miracle's sake, because I believe it has been preached already on that, and we are here to know the heart of God, heart of Jesus. So we'll not be doing this, but if you want, you can check the other gospel and study about it. But here, one point we get to know is that as soon as they receive Jesus in the boat, Jesus is boat is immediately at the shore. How is it possible? It's because of Jesus. The moment Jesus comes into boat, they are directly at the shore. It's like boat teleported directly there, directly to their destination. So we get to see when we are doing all our hard work ourselves, we'll have to sweat, we'll have to be stressed, we'll have to do every bad thing in the world, we have to face it. But when we have Jesus with us, he gives us a rest. While we are doing our work, everything, he gives us rest. And that he's with us on a journey, and that journey is more beautiful, and that journey is to be enjoyed rather than achieving the goal. Goal is, it is going to happen, you will achieve it, no doubt. Goal means, what I mean is doing the will of God. You will do it if you know it, obviously. But having Jesus with you on that journey is the most beautiful part of it, and that's what we should be enjoying. That Jesus is with me, so I'm enjoying this, and that's what God wants us to do. So here we see that as soon as they receive Jesus in the boat is at the land directly. So that's how it ends, and I think that's all I had to share here. And for you, the homework we have is from verse 22 till verse 40. And it's a huge part. It's a big part for homework. But we have the context here. I'll give you the further context also, that on the following day when when people were standing on the other side of the sea, saw that there was no other boat except that one which disciples had entered, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with disciples, but disciple had gone away alone. So they saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples. So they knew that the boats are missing, and disciples and Jesus are also missing. So they figured out that Jesus has gone from boat to the other side. So what they do, they also go there. From walking, they go there, and that's the thing. That's the context. So just give it the context. You can take it and study this part from verse 22 till verse 40, and please make notes if you get any revelation, any understanding, so that later in future when we'll be studying it, even the other gospel, you will get to see the heart of God. You will be able to connect dots with these notes, whatever you are getting. And second thing, The magic word for this video is fish, Fish. So I'll just, I hope I was able to clear it and make you understand these things. If you have any questions, please note them down and we'll meet next and we'll discuss them. I would like you all to speak there and share what you learned so that we all can learn. So, okay. So see you then. Till then, keep growing a lot.